A teacher was giving a history lecture to her class. Teacher: "All right, kids. Once upon a time, King Arthur was lying in bed." Susie yells, "Ma'am, he took my pen." Teacher: "Johnny, stop it, and whoever took his pen, give it back." The teacher sighed, straightened her notes, and continued, "Now, where was I?" Johnny smirked from the back and blurted out, "You were in bed with King Arthur, ma'am." After retiring, I went to the Social Security. The woman behind the counter asked me for my driver's license to verify my age. I looked in my pocket and realized I had left my wallet at home. I told the woman I was very sorry, but I would have to go back home and come back later. The woman said, "Unbutton your shirt." So I opened my shirt, revealing my curly silver hair. She said the silver hair on my chest was proof enough for me, and she processed my Social Security application. When I got home, I excitedly told my wife about my experience at the Social Security office. She said, "You should have dropped your pants. You might have gotten disability too." On a senior citizens bus tour, as the passengers were unloading to explore, one elderly lady stopped and leaned in to whisper in the driver's ear. "Driver, I believe something inappropriate happened to me," she said softly. The driver, not taking it too seriously, promised to look into the matter when he got a chance. Later that day, as the passengers unloaded again, another elderly lady approached, leaned in, and whispered to the driver, "Sir, I believe something inappropriate happened to me as well." Now the driver took the complaint more seriously and decided it was time to investigate. A few passengers had remained on the bus, so he went back inside to ask if anyone knew what was happening. He found one elderly man crawling on the floor beneath the seats. He bent down to speak to him. "Excuse me, sir? Can I help you?" he asked. The elderly man looked up and replied, "Well, sonny, you sure can. I've lost my toupee and I'm trying to find it." He continued, "I thought I'd found it twice, but both times it was parted in the middle, and mine is supposed to be on the side." A farmer hired a handyman to help around the house. One cold winter night, both were sharing a room in the farmhouse. The farmer said, "Hey, can you check if it's raining outside?" The handyman replied, "Well, the cat just came in. If she's wet, it's raining. If she's dry, it's not." A few minutes later, the farmer said, "Could you turn off the light?" The handyman, snug under his blanket, responded, "Just cover your head with the blanket and it'll feel like the light's off." Not long after, the farmer grumbled, "There's a cold draft coming through the door. Go and make sure it's properly shut." The handyman groaned, "Boss, I've already solved 2 problems for you tonight. How about you handle this one yourself?" Mary was confiding in her blonde friend Julie. Mary says to Julie, "Julie, you know what? I can't get any guy to sleep with me, and it's all because my fanny smells of onions." "Don't worry," her mate says. "I know a guy Johnny Fury and he has no sense of smell. He will sleep with you." Halfway through the couple's lovemaking, he says to her, Your fanny reeks of onions." "How would you know?" she says. "You have no sense of smell whatsoever." He says, "Yeah, I know, but I can't stop crying." Little Johnny is back at school after the holidays. After a few days, his teacher calls up little Johnny's dad to report that Johnny has been behaving badly at school. His dad says to the teacher, "Hang on a minute. I had Johnny at home with me for 2 months, and I never phoned you once when he misbehaved." Wait, want to make a difference? For every 1,000 subscribers and likes, I'll donate $100 to a senior in need. Help me help the elderly. Subscribe now. A man decides to order a pizza and calls what he thinks is Pizza Hut. Caller: Is this Pizza Hut? Google: No, sir, it's Google Pizza now. Caller: I must have dialed the wrong number. Sorry about that. Google: No need to apologize, sir. Google bought Pizza Hut last month. Caller: Oh, okay. Well, I'd like to order pizza. Google: Would you like your usual, sir? Caller: My usual. How do you know what I order? Google: According to our data, the last 12 times you called, you ordered an extra large pizza with 3 cheeses, sausage, pepperoni, mushrooms, and meatballs on a thick crust. Caller: Wow, you've got me pegged. Yep, I'll take that. Google: May I suggest this time you try a pizza with ricotta, arugula, sun-dried tomatoes, and olives on a whole wheat gluten-free thin crust? Caller: What? I don't want a vegetarian pizza. Google: Sir, we've noticed that your cholesterol levels are concerning. Caller: How in the world do you know that? Google: Well, we cross-referenced your phone number with your medical records. We have your blood test results from the last 7 years. Caller: Okay, but I'm not interested in your healthy pizza. I'm already taking medication for my cholesterol. Google: According to our records, sir, you haven't been taking your medication regularly. You only purchased a 30-day supply of cholesterol tablets from Lloyd's Pharmacy 4 months ago. Caller: I got more from another pharmacy. Google: That doesn't show on your credit card statement. Caller: I paid in cash. Google: But your bank withdrawals don't indicate enough cash flow to cover that purchase. Caller: I have other sources of cash. Google: Sir, those aren't reflected in your latest tax returns unless you're using undeclared income, which is illegal. Caller: What the hell? Google: I'm sorry, sir. We're just trying to assist you. Caller: I've had enough of Google, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and all the others. I'm moving to an island with no internet, no TV, and no one to watch me or spy on me. Google: I understand, sir. But you'll need to renew your passport first. It expired 6 weeks ago. Bob, through hard work, became wealthy. As he lay dying, he talked to his wife, Sophie. Sophie, here are my last wishes. Whatever you want, I'll do. First, the business I leave to Morty, our eldest. Morty, Sophie protested. Morty's always with the girls. Better to leave it to Jeffrey. Okay, Jeffrey, he sighed. Now, the bonds I leave to Thelma. Better me, argued Sophie. In 2 days, she'll spend at Bloomingdale's. All right. The summer house I leave to our Ava. She's not spoiled enough? Leave it to Morty. Finally, summoning his last ounce of strength, Bob sighed. Sophie, who's dying here? Me or you? The visiting Bible school supervisor asks little Johnny during Bible class, who broke down the walls of Jericho? Little Johnny replies, I don't know, but it wasn't me. The supervisor, taken aback by Johnny's lack of basic Bible knowledge, goes to the school principal and relates the whole incident. The principal replies, I know little Johnny as well as his whole family very well and can vouch for them. If little Johnny said that he did not do it, then I, as principal, is satisfied that it is the truth. Even more appalled, the inspector goes to the regional head of education and relates the whole story. After listening, the head replies, I can't see why you are making such a big issue out of this. Just get 3 quotes and fix the damned wall. Did you hear about the guy, Johnny Wand, who was in a bar about as drunk as it's possible to get? A group of guys notice his condition and decide to be good Samaritans and take him home. First, they stand him up to get to his wallet so they can find out where he lives. But he kept falling down. He fell down 8 more times on the way to the car, each time with a real thud. After they get to his house, he falls down another 4 times, getting him to the door. His wife comes to the door and one guy says, "We brought your husband home." The wife asks, "Where's his wheelchair?" As her husband stepped out the front door, the wife called after him, "I bet you don't know what day this is." He paused, momentarily perplexed, but quickly plastered on a confident smile. "Of course, I do, my dear. How could I forget?" he replied smoothly, before hurrying off to catch his bus to work. At 10 a.m. the doorbell rang. When the wife answered, she was greeted by a delivery man holding a box of a dozen long-stemmed red roses. By 1 p.m. another delivery arrived, a foil-wrapped 2-pound box of her favourite chocolates. Later that afternoon, a boutique courier delivered a stunning designer dress. The wife, delighted and surprised by the thoughtful gifts, could hardly wait for her husband to come home. When he finally stepped through the door, he was wearing a smug grin, proud of his quick thinking and relieved to have averted what could have been a disaster. His wife greeted him with excitement. "First the flowers, then the chocolates, and then the dress," she exclaimed. "I've never had a more wonderful Groundhog Day in my life." Mrs. Taylor, the 6th grade teacher, posed the following problem to one of her classes. A wealthy man dies and leaves $10 million. 1/5 is to go to his wife. 1/5 is to go to his son, 1/6 to his butler, and the rest to charity. Now, what does each get? After a very long silence in the classroom, little Johnny raised his hand. The teacher called on little Johnny for his answer. Little Johnny answered, "A lawyer." Uncle Saul decided to party, even though he just passed his 90th birthday. The super senior put on his best blue pinstriped suit, Pierre Cardin tie shoes, and looked in the mirror. Solly, you old dog, still a lady killer, he said to himself, putting a carnation in his lapel, as he made his way to the lounge in the Fontainebleau Hotel. Seeing a lovely lady in her late 80s, Saul strolled over, took the stool beside her, and ordered waiter pepper. When it arrived, he sipped it slowly, turned slyly to the lady and asked, "So, darling, do I come here very often?" A widowed mama was talking about her recent breakup with the businessman she was seeing, telling all to her married daughter, Sheila. "So, Mama," said Sheila, "why did you stop seeing that nice senior businessman? You told me how much alike you are. You both love art and hate opera. You both love cats and hate dogs. You both love tea and hate coffee. And," added Mama, "we both love our social security checks and hate each other." Maria, an Italian, Athena, a Greek, and Esther, all senior citizens, were seated on a park bench, discussing what they would do if their doctor gave them only 3 months to live. Maria quickly answered, "I'd eat my way through Rome. Every cannelloni would be in my mouth." Athena said, "I'd cruise the islands and break dishes with as many 25-year-old fishermen I could find. And you, Esther?" "Me, darlings. I'd call my son-in-law the doctor and get a second opinion." A young girl, excited for Christmas, stays up late to meet Santa Claus. She quietly waits, wearing her cozy robe, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. At midnight, Santa arrives, climbing down the chimney and starting his work filling stockings. Just as he's about to leave, the girl looks up and says sweetly, "Oh, Santa, please stay." Santa chuckles and replies, "Ho, ho, ho! Gotta go, gotta go. I've got presents for the children, you know." Determined, the girl lets her robe slip off to show a festive outfit and says, "Oh, Santa, please stay." Santa, with a twinkle in his eye, responds, "Ho, ho, ho! Gotta go, gotta go. I got presents for the children, you know." The girl grins and playfully says, "Please, Santa, stay." Santa laughs, wiping his brow. "Ho, ho, ho! Gotta go, gotta go. There's so much to deliver, you know." As the girl smiles, Santa, with a big grin, says, "But I can't stay too long. I've got to get the presents delivered. And I've got a lot of chimneys to climb, you know." The girl laughs, and both share a merry moment before Santa waves goodbye, off to spread the holiday cheer. One day on the northern-southern Ireland border, Father Sean Vicar of a Church of Ireland parish and Father Patrick Priest of the Roman Catholic Church across the road were seen together erecting this sign: "The end is near, turn yourself around before it's too late." As a car sped past, the driver yelled, "Leave us alone, you religious nutter. We don't need your lectures." From around the bend, they heard screeching, a thud and a splash. Shaking his head, Father Patrick said, "That's the third one this morning." "Yeah," Sean agreed, then said, "Do you think maybe that sign should just say, 'Bridge closed'?" When our lawnmower broke down, my wife kept hinting to me to get it fixed. But somehow, I always had something else to take care of. First the shed, the boat, making beer. Always something more important to me. Finally, she thought of a clever way to get her point across. When I arrived home one day, I found her sitting in the tall grass, busily snipping away with a tiny pair of sewing scissors. I watched silently for a short time, then went into the house. I was gone only a minute, and when I came out again, I handed her a toothbrush. I said, "When you finish cutting the grass, you may as well sweep the driveway. The doc says I will walk again, but you will always have a limp." Little Johnny walked up to his mom one day and said, "Mom, I want a little brother." His mom smiled awkwardly and replied, "Well, your dad's on a business trip right now. Let's wait until he gets back, and then we'll think about it." Johnny thought for a moment and said, "Why wait? Let's surprise him." His mom, flustered, shook her head and snapped, "Quiet, you little smart aleck. You were already a surprise for your dad." She rushed to the pharmacy to pick up medication for her sick daughter. But when she returned to her car, panic set in. She had locked her keys inside. Frantically looking around, she spotted an old, rusty coat hanger lying on the ground. She picked it up, but quickly realized, "I have no idea how to use this." Desperate, she bowed her head and prayed, "Dear God, please send someone to help me." Just minutes later, a beat-up old motorcycle roared up beside her. The rider was a burly man with a long beard, wearing a weathered, skull-patterned bandana. He dismounted and approached her, asking, "Need some help, ma'am?" She explained, "Yes, please. My daughter is sick, and I've locked my keys in the car. I need to get home. Can you use this hanger to unlock it?" "Sure thing," he replied. With practiced ease, he took the hanger, and within seconds, the car door was open. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the woman hugged the man tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, God," she whispered, "for sending me such a kind man." The biker, overhearing her prayer, looked a bit sheepish. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm not exactly a nice man. I just got out of prison yesterday. For car theft." The woman paused for a moment, then hugged him even tighter, crying, "Oh, thank you, God. You even sent me a professional." "I mowed the lawn today, and after finishing up, I sat down with a cold beer in hand. The day was absolutely beautiful, and the drink gave me the perfect excuse for some deep, uninterrupted thinking. As I sat there, my wife walked by and asked, 'What are you doing?' 'Nothing,' I replied. Now, the reason I said nothing instead of just thinking is simple. If I had admitted to thinking, she would have followed up with, 'Thinking about what?' And that would have led to a whole conversation about how men are, in fact, deep thinkers on a wide range of topics, something that often invites more questions than answers. Eventually, my thoughts wandered to one of life's great debates. Is giving birth more painful than getting kicked in the nuts? Women always insist that childbirth is far worse, but I can't help but wonder, how would they know? After another beer and a bit more deductive reasoning, I think I've cracked the code. Here's my conclusion. Getting kicked in the nuts is more painful than childbirth. Obviously, I have no first-hand experience of childbirth, but hear me out. A year or so after giving birth, many women say something like, 'You know, it'd be nice to have another baby.' But you will never hear a man say, 'You know, I think I'd like another kick in the nuts.' And with that, I rest my case. Time for another beer. Maybe a nap too. A teenage boy goes to church to confess his sins. "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I have been with a loose girl." The priest asks, "Is that you, little Tommy?" "Yes, Father, it is," the boy replied. "And who was the girl you were with?" "I can't tell you, Father. I don't want to ruin her reputation." "Well, Tommy, I'm sure to find out her name sooner or later, so you may as well tell me now." "Was it Patricia Williams?" "Sorry, Father, I cannot say." "Was it Lisa Davis?" "I'll never tell," replied the boy. "Was it Kathy Odell?" "My lips are sealed, Father." "Was it Brenda Jones then?" "Please, Father, I cannot tell you." The priest sighs in frustration. "You're very tight-lipped, and I admire that. But you've sinned, and you have to make amends. You can no longer be an altar boy until 4 months have passed. Now go and behave yourself." "Yes, Father," the boy replied. Tommy walks back to his pew and sits down. His friend Johnny slides over and whispers, "What did you get?" Tommy grins. 4 months vacation and 4 good leads." In a dimly lit room filled with the faint scent of incense, the mystic gazed into her crystal ball, her expression somber. "I won't sugarcoat this," she said, her voice low and foreboding. "Prepare yourself. Your husband will meet a violent and tragic end before the year is out." The woman across from her gasped, her face pale and drawn. She stared at the mystic, then at the flickering candle casting eerie shadows on the walls, and finally down at her trembling hands. After a moment of silence, she took a deep breath, steadying herself. Though fear gripped her, there was one question she needed answered. Fixing the mystic with an unwavering gaze, she asked, her voice calm but deliberate, "Will I be found innocent?" An old priest got sick of everyone in his parish confessing adultery. During one Sunday's sermon, he told them, "If one more person confesses to adultery, I'll quit." Since everyone liked him, they decided to use a code word: fallen. From then on, anyone who had committed adultery said they had fallen. This satisfied the old priest, as well as the parishioners, and everything was fine for years, until finally, the old priest passed away at the ripe old age of 93. Shortly after the new young priest settled in, he paid a call on the mayor. The priest was quite concerned. "You have to do something about the sidewalks in this town, Mayor. You can't believe how many people come into the confessional talking about having fallen." The mayor started to laugh, realizing that no one had explained their code word to the new priest. But before the mayor could explain, the priest shook his finger at the mayor and said, "I don't know why you're laughing. Your wife fell 3 times last week." 2 babies were sitting in their cribs when one called out to the other, "Are you a little girl or a little boy?" The second baby giggled and said, "I'm not sure." "What do you mean you're not sure?" asked the first baby, puzzled. "I just don't know how to tell," replied the other. The first baby chuckled. "Well, I know how to figure it out. I'll come over and see for myself." He carefully climbed into the other baby's crib and disappeared under the blankets. After a moment, he emerged with a big grin. "You're a little girl, and I'm a little boy," he declared triumphantly. "Wow, you're so smart," said the baby girl. "But how did you know?" "It was easy," the baby boy replied with a smile. "You've got pink socks and I've got blue ones." A news photographer needed to charter a flight to take some arrival photos, so he phoned the local airport to inquire. He was told a plane would be waiting for him there that afternoon. Arriving at the airport, he spotted a plane swarming up outside a hangar. He jumped in with his bag, slammed the door shut, and shouted, "Let's go!" The pilot taxied out, swung the plane into the wind, and took off. Once in the air, the photographer instructed the pilot, "Fly over the valley and make low passes so I can take pictures." "Why?" asked the pilot. "Because I'm a photographer for the news," he responded, "and I need to get some close-up shots." The pilot was strangely silent for a moment. Finally, he stammered, "So what you're telling me is, you're not my flight instructor?" Little Johnny and his friend Billy were strolling through the park when they came across 3 women sitting on a bench, each eating a banana. As they passed by, Johnny cheerfully said, "Howdy, ladies." Curious, Billy asked, "Do you know those women?" "Nope," Johnny replied, "but I can tell you who they are: the nun, the prostitute, and the bride." Stunned, Billy asked, "How in the world did you figure that out?" Johnny grinned and explained. "Well, the nun held the banana in one hand and used the other hand to break it into small, neat pieces before eating it. The prostitute," he continued, "grabbed the banana with both hands and shoved the whole thing into her mouth." "Wow, that's pretty clever," Billy said, impressed. "But how did you know the third one was a bride?" Johnny chuckled. "Oh, that was the easiest one. She held the banana with one hand and pushed her head towards it with the other." Cozy Cabin Cafe. All coffee 5 cents. During a snowy weekend getaway in Vermont, 4 friends stumbled upon a quaint cafe nestled in the woods. A wooden sign outside read, "Cozy Cabin Cafe. All coffee 5 cents. They exchanged puzzled looks. 5 cents? That can't be right, one of them said. Curiosity got the better of them, and they decided to step inside. The cafe was warm and inviting, with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Behind the counter stood an elderly woman with a cheerful smile. "Welcome, dears. What can I get for you?" she asked. Scanning the menu, they noticed it wasn't just plain coffee on offer. There were cappuccinos, lattes, espressos, and even specialty brews. Each friend ordered a different drink, expecting some catch. Within minutes, the woman served them 4 steaming cups, each adorned with foam art. "There you go, dears. That'll be 5 cents each." The friends stared in disbelief. "You mean this amazing coffee is just a nickel?" one of them asked. "That's right," the woman said with a wink. They eagerly paid 20 cents and began sipping their drinks. The flavors were rich and expertly crafted, far better than anything they'd had at chain coffee shops. After finishing their first round, they ordered another, still unable to believe their luck. Finally, one of them asked, "This coffee is incredible, but how can you afford to charge just 5 cents? The woman chuckled. "I used to run a gourmet coffee shop in the city. A few years ago, I sold the business for a fortune and retired here. I love making coffee, so I thought, why not open a place where everyone can enjoy it without worrying about the price?" The friends smiled and raised their cups in a toast to her generosity. As they relaxed by the fireplace, they noticed a group of 6 hikers sitting by the window. Oddly, none of them had coffee. They were just staring longingly at the counter. Curious, one of the friends asked, "Why aren't those folks ordering anything?" The woman burst out laughing. "Oh, them! They're waiting for tomorrow morning when I put out the free coffee sign." 2 women came before wise King Solomon, dragging between them a young man in a 3-piece suit. "This young lawyer agreed to marry my daughter," said the first one. "No, he agreed to marry my daughter," said the other. And so they haggled before the king until he called for silence. "Bring me my biggest sword," said Solomon, "and I shall hew the young attorney in half. Each of you shall receive a half." "Sounds good to me," said the first woman. But the other woman said, "Oh, sire, do not spill innocent blood. Let the other woman's daughter marry him." The wise king did not hesitate a moment. "The attorney must marry the first lady's daughter," he proclaimed. "But she was willing to hew him in 2, exclaimed the king's court. "Indeed," said wise King Solomon, "and that proves she is indeed the true mother-in-law." A woman takes her little boy to visit their dead relatives' gravestones at a cemetery. The little boy has never been to a cemetery before. The woman first takes her son, her grandmother Annie's gravestone. The initials under Annie's name say R.I.P. The little boy asks, "Mommy, what does R.I.P. stand for?" His mother replies, "It stands for rest in peace. That means we wish for Grandma Annie's spirit to find peace in the afterlife." Then they come across the gravestone of the woman's Uncle Joe. The little boy asks, "Mommy, what does RIH stand for?" Pointing to the initials printed under Uncle Joe's name. "We really didn't like Uncle Joe," said his mother. An old accountant is on his deathbed. Summoning his last bit of strength, he lifts his head and whispers, "Is my beloved wife Sarah here with me?" And Sarah says, "Yes, I am here." He then says, "Are my children, my wonderful children, are they here with me?" And they reply, "Yes, Father, we are here with you to see you breathe your last." And he says, "Are my brothers and sisters here with me as well?" And they too tell him that they are here. So the old man lays back quietly, closes his eyes and says, "So if everybody is here, why is the light on in the kitchen?" A teenage boy tells his father, "Dad, there's trouble with the car. It has water in the carburetor." The father looks confused and says, Water in the carburetor, that's ridiculous. But the son insists. I tell you, the car has water in the carburetor. His father, starting to get a little nervous, says, You don't even know what a carburetor is, but I will check it out. Where is the car? In the pool, replies the son.